The city of Chicago is in a mess. The state of Illinois is in a mess. Our nation is in a mess. Our world is in a mess. Not just ordinary messes, but I would say they are messes of epic, if not historic, proportions. What does it mean for us to be in a mess of epic and historic proportions? How do we judge something to be a mess? We judge something to be a mess by looking at the reality that we can see in the world that surrounds us, that we can hear with our own ears, that we can see with our own eyes. And then we compare that reality with the ideals that we believe in. They may be religious ideals, they may be humanistic ideals, they may be cultural ideals, they may be constitutional ideals. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, including life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness. The mess violates all of those. You and I are paying the price for these messes. But the price that you and I are paying for these messes is nothing compared to the price that people who are poor pay for these messes, that the hungry pay for these messes, that the homeless pay for these messes, that the elderly pay for these messes, that men and women of color in excluded communities pay for these messes, that the victims of war and terrorism and violence pay for these messes. Because these people who are our brothers and sisters, live at the nexus where all of this mess comes to home. They pay the highest price. And it's a price that shouldn't be paid. It's a price that mustn't be paid. I grew up as a history nerd. From second grade on, I was interested. I was in love with history. Not just the who, the what, the when, and the where that most people think historians are solely obsessed with, and we are. But beyond that, because the who, the what, the when, and the where means nothing without the why. The purpose of history ultimately is to give us insight into how we individually and collectively as humanity got to where we are here and now with whatever is facing us. In this case, the messes that are facing us. History is here to teach us if we want to learn, if we're willing to learn. My grandmother used to tell me when I was growing up, son, you can learn the easy way or you can learn the hard way. Unfortunately, I usually chose the hard way. But again, the same is true with us as humanity. We can learn the easy way or we can learn the hard way. Because this is not the first time in human history that we as humanity have faced a mess of epic, historic proportions. Vincent de Paul lived in 17th century France. Paris in his era was a mess. France in his era was a mess. Europe in his era was a mess. And as Vincent de Paul looked around at his worlds, he saw who was, again, paying the highest price for the intersection of all that mess. Again, people who were poor, people who were marginalized, people who were vulnerable. And he was dissatisfied with what he saw. And he looked around at his world, he looked at himself, and he asked the question, what must be done? What must I do? What must you do? What must we do to clean this mess up, to make this world a better place, and in particular, a better place for our brothers and sisters for whom it is the worst place? Because what he believed is, if we can clean this mess up, if we can make this world a better place for these, our brothers and sisters, who are at the nexus of all of these messes, then we can do anything. The rest will be easy. The rest of the mess to clean up will be easy. The same is true today. By the end of his life, Vincent de Paul emerged, and France emerged, and Paris emerged as a better place, as an unbelievably better place. And people were so astounded by the transformation that they looked to the figure of Vincent de Paul and they said, he's responsible for much of this. What he has accomplished is not just heroic, what he has accomplished is miraculous. And in the Roman Catholic tradition, when someone does something miraculous, you slap a halo on their head. Okay. And that's exactly what happened to Vincent de Paul. They slapped a halo on his head. But what does that halo represent? How did Vincent de Paul and his followers, how were they able to accomplish what they accomplished? How were they able to have this miraculous transformation take place through their choices? So who was Vincent de Paul? How can we describe him? And I think by doing that, we get some insight into how he and his followers changed their world for the better. He was attentive. He was intelligent. He was reasonable. He was responsible. He was loving. He was hardworking. He was self-disciplined. He was courageous. He was brave. He believed in relationships. And by being all of those things, he changed himself from a very, very average person, a very, very average Christian, a very, very average priest, into an unforgettable, miraculous figure of human history, a saint. That's fine for 1660 in France, but what does it mean for us here today? And in particular, what does it mean for us here at DePaul University, here and now today? In 1898, DePaul University was founded as an answer to that question, that Vincentian question, what must be done? What must be done in the face of an American higher educational system which defines itself by who it excludes? And at the dawn of the 20th century, the list of who American higher education excluded, and excluded purposefully, was a long one. Immigrants and the children of immigrants, women, members of religious minorities, members of cultural minorities. The list goes on and on and on and on. DePaul University turned its back on that exclusion, turned its back on that exclusivity, and defined itself from day one as an institution that would be defined by inclusivity, by how it included students, in particular, how it included students from excluded communities. This morning, as DePaul University opened its doors, we continue to ask that same question of ourselves. What must be done? What must we at DePaul University do to make this world a better place? We do that in two ways. One, we do that through the education that we give our students, especially students who come from excluded communities. There is nothing more powerful than that piece of paper that our students get at graduation day, because that paper will make possible in their lives, as it made possible in my life as a first-generation college student, what made possible in my life as a first-generation American, what made possible in my life as a student who came to DePaul University without any financial resources. That piece of paper changes persons' lives forever. It makes possible things that could not have been possible without that piece of paper. And no economic power, no cultural power, no political power, no religious power can take that power away from us who that has been given. But that power is also a responsibility to use that wisdom and knowledge that the university is about creating and sustaining and changing our world for the better. Access without attainment is access to nothing. And attainment without purpose and without value is attainment to no purpose. Let's look at what that means for DePaul University.
St. Vincent de Paul spent his life answering one haunting question: what must be done? Vincent was a man of faith. His faith gave him a vision of how the world should look. He compared the world he saw around him with his ideal vision, and he often felt a keen sense of dissatisfaction with the status quo. As Vincent looked around, he saw countless men and women, infants and children, and the elderly living at the margins. He saw people who were hungry. He saw people who were homeless or victims of war. He saw children who were orphaned and the elderly who were alone. He saw people who did not receive adequate health care, nor educational, employment, or economic opportunities. He saw people whose daily lives bore the full weight of poverty. He recognized these people as being his brothers and sisters. Looking into their eyes with great respect and love, and looking at their lives with great compassion, Vincent asked the question: what must be done? What must I do? What must you do? What must we do? DePaul University is a place where these vital, inescapable, and urgent questions are asked and answered, debated and argued, studied and dissected, both in the classroom and then on the streets. What are the causes of poverty, injustice, homelessness, inequality, environmental degradation, and war in our world? What are the solutions? What can you and I do together to make the world a better place, for our own sakes and for the sake of the more than 7 billion people who surround us? What must be done?
What must I do? What must you do? What must we do? In the classroom and on the streets. Our world must change, our world can change, and our world will change. Thank you.